The State Department is intensifying its campaign against RT. They believe we've launched an intense campaign of disinformation that tries to paint a dangerous and false picture of Ukraine's legitimate government. I'm not sure what makes them legitimate, but Under-Secretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Affairs Richard Stengel, also the former managing editor of Time, blogged officially that we are promoting Vladimir Putin's fantasy, adding to recent comments from his boss.
Propaganda bullhorn that is the state-sponsored Russia Today program.
RT is a distortion machine, not a news organization, says Stengel, and he gives examples. No links or videos, just words, but that should be enough, right? Remember the leaked phone call involving former Ukrainian Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko? Well, apparently we only made it appear that Tymoshenko was advocating violence against Russia.
А что теперь делать оставшимся 8 миллионам русских, которые остались на территории Украины? Они же изгои.
Будем их расстреливать из атомного оружия.
Okay, no violence there. The next accusation is our unquestioning repetition that the United States has invested $5 billion in regime change in Ukraine. Okay, fair enough, but listen to this.
We've invested over $5 billion to assist Ukraine in these and other goals that will ensure a secure and prosperous and democratic Ukraine.
Bad quality, I know, but you heard what Victoria Nuland said. That was her, by the way, just in case they try to claim that we doctored the footage. Here she is again, saying it on CNN, loud and clear.
The United States has invested some $5 billion in Ukraine.
Ludicrous as it may sound, there's plenty of governments and people across the globe who won't doubt for a second that the U.S. doesn't invest money just for the fun of it. But the most offensive accusation is this, that we have made constant reference to any Ukrainian opposed to a Russian takeover of the country as a terrorist. Just like the article, we couldn't find any examples, but we did find this.
Police are trying to clear out the square. As you can see, a lot of people. We're going to be moving this way. Oh, that is not on! That is... we're seeing a policeman now hitting somebody who's on the floor right there.
The police are just behind this fire barricade, and they're moving in on the protesters. We can hear flashbangs exploded all the time.
This is a very angry group of anti-Kiev demonstrators. It seems as if the scene is being set for confrontation.
Our reporters risk their safety and sometimes their lives, not just in Ukraine, but all over the world, to bring people stories non-propaganda channels don't want you to see. And we cover both sides. So the least Mr. Stengel could have done for his post on the official blog of the State Department was to post some links, actual footage to back up his claims. Or have the courtesy to find an actual picture of RT's newsroom, not just post a random one from another newsroom somewhere in Moscow, which is exactly what was done, as you can see here. Joining us in the now is Ben Swan, an award-winning journalist and someone who I believe is very familiar with how the U.S. media works. Thanks for joining us, Ben. I understand the Russian media are no angels, but what do you make of the State Department's calling out RT for just showing one side, or even more, saying that we distort facts?
Well, I think you have to step back for a minute and recognize what's being said here. I mean, remember, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, it was a very short time ago when she was Secretary of State, had said that RT and CCTV in China, the Press TV in Iran were having a lot of influence. And she was saying that the U.S. government needed to invest in creating a propaganda channel in order to put out the U.S. message. And what she said over and over around the world is that the message of those channels is getting through to people. And I think that's what you're really seeing is a State Department that says, you know, in the United States, media is very controlled, and these other voices are now starting to break through thanks to the internet, thanks to the ability of people really globally to be able to access information. And I think you're seeing a real threat here to the power structure.
It's interesting that you bring up control, because I want to talk about how corporate media works. In 1983, and I believe we have some great graphics to illustrate this, the media was owned by 50 companies. In 2011, and I assume it's the same now, 6 companies control that 90% of media outlets. So it's these 6 companies controlling what Americans hear, see, and watch. Can you tell us more about how this works?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the graphics that you're using. I can't actually see them right now.
They're
if the graphic has not been updated,
online.
you know, it might. Absolutely. It might show, for instance, I would say it might show, for instance, you know, that NBC owns a lot of these,
Let's bring
these
those
different
graphics
channels.
back
And now,
up so
of
our
course,
audience
it's
can see it.
Comcast.
Yeah, you go ahead. Continue commenting.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say Comcast now owns everything that NBC used to own, in addition to additional space and cable space. So that's one of the shifts there. And so, look, at the end of the day, you know, a few of those positions have changed, but at the end of the day, about 6 major companies own national media in the United States. Now, again, you have to step back from that for a minute, because local media, local TV stations, are owned by a variety of different owners. But even then, you have this enormous concentration of power where one company might own TV stations in 50 or 60 TV markets and provide content for all of those TV markets. So at the end of the day, you have a lot of information being concentrated in very few hands. And the internet, again, has been breaking through that. And that's why I think we're seeing a big challenge in the United States right now by companies like Comcast and Time Warner, who want to push back on net neutrality here in the United States, because they want to be able to control information on the internet. And our government right now, our FCC, is working very hard to make that happen.
I want to pick up on you mentioned Time Warner, which of course that's Time, that's CNN. Again, Richard Stengel talking about RT. He was managing editor of Time for 7 years. He's now under Secretary of State. How does that work?
Right. Well, that should tell you right there. That gives you an idea of what the propaganda is all about. For someone who, I guess, fully understands it, to be a journalist and then go work as a Undersecretary of State, you are really kind of straddling both of these worlds. But look, one of the things that is fairly unknown in the United States is how much lobbying influence media companies have in this country. The top 3 major companies donating to President Obama's campaign in the last election were media companies. Some of the largest lobbying firms in the United States represent multiple media companies. And so we see a huge amount of influence going into those administrations. We see a lot of influence in our Congress. We see a lot of influence with the president. And then, as you're pointing out, influence from media who are now a part of the Secretary of State program. So, look, at the end of the day, what we have to look at is RT speaking to people in a way that media in the United States is not? And without question, the answer is yes. We have a left-right paradigm in this country where media pretends to be at odds with each other over the left wing and the right wing. But in reality, when those two wings all start attacking one particular news entity, in this case RT, then you know that that paradigm is starting to break down.
You're a double Emmy Award winner. I'm sure you've run into how this corporate media works. What have been some of your own experiences? Well, look, throughout my career, I've worked for Fox TV stations, NBC TV stations, and I've seen kind of the gamut of what media looks like in this country. There is a lot of influence that comes from the top, a lot of kind of peer influence down in the lower levels and in newsrooms. But again, what we see is a crony system that is really developing in this country, where the guys who run media companies, the executives who run those companies, the men and women who really have the influence over what Americans see and Americans hear and Americans read, those executives are becoming so entwined in a crony system with politicians that it really has become a form of propaganda where on the local levels, on the newsroom level, journalists don't have a say, and they're not allowed to talk about certain issues in this country. We're not allowed to show certain pictures. I had a conversation with just someone today. I asked them this question. I said, when was the last time in the United States we saw a picture on national or local television of the aftermath of a U.S. drone strike? And they couldn't tell me. And the reason for that is because we don't show those pictures here. American media refuses to show those images. American newspapers won't publish them. And so the internet, again, has become this source that's starting to break through all that. But the other thing that's important to remember is that the cable news audience in America, the national news audience, is shrinking. Old media is dying in this country. New media is rising. And that's the reality of what we're seeing. Well, we will continue to show people across the globe those pictures. Journalist Ben Swan, thanks so much for being in the now, and you keep doing what you do.
Likewise, thank you.